So we're not quite done with the database just yet. Telling you about the back end. In this case, I'm going to be talking to you about, of course, the database architecture. You know, Oracle database, that's what this is specifically. The architecture is about other databases and other database engines work differently. Oracle databases, when you have a client application that is responsible for connecting to what is known as a listener. Now, in Oracle, listener is a process that's sitting there waiting for a connection request. When that connection request comes in, the listener passes the client request over to a server process. And the server process is the one that can access the database. And the database has a couple of components. One is the data file, where the data file sits and where the data sits, the tables and the columns and the rows of data. And then there are system files specific to the database system on the back end. The client is querying or trying to communicate with the data files usually. The database administrator, on the other hand, is the one that is responsible for managing and maintaining the database and the database instance, which I'm going to talk to you about next. Some of the things you want to be sure of that you understand is that the listener process is the one that is sitting there waiting for a connection to take place. This client right over here can be an application, can be a database administrator trying to get in for administrator-related stuff, can be a developer as well. Something to keep in mind. When the Oracle database instance starts, whenever you talk about a database instance, it's really talking to you about the process that's running the database. There are a couple of pieces you want to be aware of. One of those pieces is the System Global Area, or the SGA. Now, SGA is responsible for the memory structures, all of the memory structures that are allocated at the time the database is started. Okay, so when we talk about an instance, we're really talking about the database running. Without the database instance running, or an instance of the database running, the user or the application or a database administrator, no other entity will be able to use the database. Instance is actually the running database itself so that it can be communicated with. The System Global Area, or the SGA, is available to all processes that are happening on the database instance itself, which is very different from the PGA. PGA is a Program Global Area, and this is available to each session. It keeps every session, yes, it's called a session. Every session is separate. Now, sessions are the connections that are made to the database instance. Those sessions can be made via an application, via a user, via a process. So every database instance has multiple sessions running. Session is essentially the connection between the database and the endpoint, which can be an application, which can be a web server, which can be a developer, whatever the case is. Program Global Area maintains individual sessions of a database. In addition to the SGA, the PGA, when the database instance is running, there's also something called the background processes. There are 9 specific background processes that I'm going to be telling you about, and I'm going to walk you through every single one of them and what they do. These 3 components, the SGA, the System Global Area, the Program Global Area, and the background processes, are the ones that make up a database instance when it's running.